Have you ever caught a glimpse of something dark within yourself? A flash of cruelty in a moment of anger, a whisper of satisfaction at another's misfortune? Or perhaps a disturbing thought that seemed to come from nowhere? What if I told you that these moments aren't anomalies, but windows into a universal human capacity that philosophers and psychologists have grappled with for centuries? The transformation of good people into perpetrators of evil is not a rare phenomenon confined to history books or distant lands. It's a pattern woven into the fabric of human nature, one that manifests in ways both subtle and profound. Today, we embark on a journey into the heart of human morality, exploring the psychological mechanisms, social forces, and personal choices that can turn virtuous individuals into vehicles of harm. The Lucifer effect, a concept popularized by psychologist Philip Zimbardo, suggests that circumstances rather than inherent character flaws often drive good people to commit acts of cruelty. Think of it as a metamorphosis, not unlike Kafka's protagonist who wakes to find himself transformed into something unrecognizable. But unlike Kafka's tale, this transformation occurs gradually through a series of small compromises and subtle shifts in perspective. Consider the profound implications of Zimbardo's Stanford prison experiment, where ordinary college students were randomly assigned roles as guards or prisoners. Within days, these young men, selected for their psychological stability, began exhibiting shocking behavior. The guards became increasingly cruel, while the prisoners suffered genuine psychological trauma. What's most unsettling is how quickly this transformation occurred, suggesting that the capacity for cruelty lurks closer to the surface than we'd like to believe. But why does this happen? The answer lies in understanding the complex interplay between our environment, our psychology, and our social nature. Humans are remarkably adaptable creatures, capable of adjusting to almost any circumstance. This adaptability, usually a strength, can become our greatest vulnerability when the environment rewards cruelty or punishment becomes normalized. Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments provide another window into this phenomenon. Participants, when instructed by authority figures, administered what they believed to be painful, even lethal, electric shocks to others. The majority continued despite hearing screams of pain, which were actually recordings. These weren't sadists or sociopaths. They were ordinary people who found themselves caught in the machinery of authority and obedience. The implications are profound. Evil isn't always the product of evil intentions. More often, it emerges from a complex web of circumstances, pressures, and psychological mechanisms that can transform anyone, yes anyone, into someone capable of causing harm. This realization should humble us all. As we delve deeper into this exploration, remember that understanding these mechanisms isn't about excusing harmful behavior. Rather, it's about recognizing our own vulnerability to these forces and developing the awareness and tools to resist them. The journey ahead will challenge your assumptions about human nature, morality, and your own capacity for both good and evil. What are the building blocks of moral collapse? How does the architecture of evil construct itself within the human psyche? The transformation from good to evil rarely occurs in a single dramatic moment. Instead, it builds gradually, brick by brick, through a series of psychological mechanisms that work together to erode our moral foundations. The first cornerstone is dehumanization, the process by which we strip others of their humanity. This isn't always as obvious as wartime propaganda depicting enemies as monsters. It can be as subtle as the labels we use in everyday life: those people, them, or any term that creates distance between us and others. Consider how easily we dismiss the humanity of those we disagree with online, reducing complex individuals to caricatures based on their political views or social groups. The second foundation is moral disengagement, a concept introduced by psychologist Albert Bandura. This is the mind's way of justifying harmful actions through various psychological mechanisms. Everyone else is doing it. They deserved it. I was just following orders. These are all examples of moral disengagement at work. It's a psychological self-defense mechanism that allows us to maintain a positive self-image while engaging in behavior that contradicts our values. Group dynamics form another crucial element in this architecture. Humans are inherently social creatures, and our desire to belong can override our individual moral compass. The pressure to conform, the diffusion of responsibility within a group, and the powerful influence of social roles can lead us to participate in actions we would never consider on our own. Consider how these elements interact in everyday situations. A manager might implement harsh policies that harm employees, justifying it as necessary for business. A student might join in bullying a classmate to fit in with their peers. A citizen might support discriminatory policies because their social group considers it acceptable. Each instance represents a small step away from our moral center, but these steps can lead us far from where we started. The role of authority cannot be understated in this architecture. Authority figures don't just give orders, they provide moral framework and justification. When someone in authority tells us something is right or necessary, it becomes easier to suppress our own moral misgivings. This is particularly dangerous when combined with institutional power, whether in government, corporations, or other organizational structures. Perhaps most insidious is the gradual nature of moral corruption. Small compromises pave the way for larger ones. Each time we choose expediency over ethics, self-interest over principle, or conformity over conscience, we weaken our moral foundation. Like a building with compromised supports, our ethical structure becomes increasingly vulnerable to collapse. Understanding this architecture is crucial because it helps us recognize the warning signs in ourselves and others. It reveals that evil isn't something that happens to bad people. It's a potential that exists within all human systems and relationships. The question isn't whether we're vulnerable to these forces, but how we can strengthen our resistance to them. How do we resist the pull toward darkness? What tools and strategies can we employ to maintain our moral compass when forces around us push toward compromise and corruption? The answer lies not in assuming we're immune to these influences, but in actively developing our capacity for moral resistance. The first line of defense is self-awareness. This means developing the ability to recognize our own rationalizations, prejudices, and moral compromises before they take root. It requires regular self-reflection and honest examination of our motivations and actions. Ask yourself, am I acting in alignment with my values, or am I making excuses? Am I treating others with the full dignity they deserve as human beings? Moral courage forms the backbone of resistance. This isn't about being fearless, it's about acting ethically despite fear. Moral courage is like a muscle that strengthens with use. Start with small acts of resistance, speaking up against casual prejudice, refusing to participate in workplace gossip, or standing up for someone being treated unfairly. Each act of moral courage makes the next one easier. Creating ethical support systems is crucial. Surround yourself with people who share your values and will hold you accountable. When faced with moral challenges, having a community that supports ethical behavior can make the difference between standing firm and giving in to pressure. This doesn't mean isolating yourself in an echo chamber, but rather ensuring you have anchors to help you stay grounded in your principles. Developing emotional resilience is another vital component. The pressure to compromise our values often comes with emotional manipulation, fear, shame, or the desire to belong. Learning to recognize and manage these emotional triggers helps us make clearer moral choices. Practices like mindfulness meditation can strengthen our ability to act thoughtfully rather than reactively. Consider implementing practical strategies for ethical decision-making. One effective approach is the front page test. Would you be comfortable seeing your actions reported on the front page of a newspaper? Another is the future self test. How will you feel about this decision when looking back years from now? These mental exercises can help cut through the fog of immediate pressures and clarify our moral choices. Education and understanding serve as powerful tools of resistance. The more we understand about psychology, history, and ethics, the better equipped we are to recognize and resist manipulation. Study the stories of those who maintained their integrity in challenging circumstances. What strategies did they use? What principles guided them? Remember that resistance isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. We will make mistakes. We will sometimes fail to live up to our ideals. The key is to learn from these failures rather than letting them defeat us. Each moral challenge, whether we succeed or fail, is an opportunity for growth and learning. Significant challenge we face, each a test of our character and values. Understanding this path requires us to examine both the forces that pull us toward darkness and those that guide us toward light. The concept of moral identity plays a crucial role in this transformation. How we see ourselves, our values, beliefs, and ethical principles shapes our choices and actions. When our moral identity is strong and well defined, it acts as an internal compass, helping us navigate difficult situations. However, this identity isn't static. It evolves through our experiences, choices, and the environments we inhabit. Consider how transformative experiences can reshape our moral landscape. A person who witnesses injustice might become an advocate for change. Someone who experiences kindness in a moment of vulnerability might dedicate themselves to helping others. These pivotal moments can either strengthen our moral resolve or begin a process of ethical erosion. The role of habit in transformation cannot be overstated. Just as physical habits shape our bodies, moral habits shape our character. Each time we choose to act with integrity, speak truth in the face of pressure, or show kindness when it's difficult, we strengthen our ethical muscle. Conversely, each time we compromise our values, ignore wrongdoing, or choose expedience over principle, we weaken our moral foundation. Environmental factors play a crucial role in this transformation. The people we surround ourselves with, the institutions we participate in, and the cultural messages we absorb all influence our moral development. This is why creating and maintaining ethical environments is so crucial. When our surroundings support and reward moral behavior, transformation toward good becomes more natural and sustainable. But what about those who have already started down a dark path? Is redemption possible? The answer is a resounding yes, but it requires several key elements: recognition of wrongdoing, genuine remorse, a commitment to change, and concrete actions to make amends. The path back to ethical behavior often involves acknowledging the harm caused and taking full responsibility, understanding the mechanisms that led to moral failure, developing new patterns of thinking and behavior, making active contributions to prevent similar harm, building a support system that encourages ethical behavior. The transformation process isn't linear. It often involves setbacks, moments of doubt, and periods of struggle. What matters is the overall direction of change and the commitment to continue moving forward, even when it's difficult. Leadership plays a vital role in transformation, both personal and collective. Leaders who model ethical behavior, encourage moral courage, and create environments where integrity thrives can catalyze positive transformation in others. Conversely, leaders who prioritize results over ethics, ignore misconduct, or actively encourage harmful behavior can accelerate moral decline. Understanding the path of transformation helps us recognize where we are on our own journey and what steps we need to take next. It reminds us that character is not fixed but constantly evolving through our choices and actions. In our final section, we confront perhaps the most crucial question: how do we maintain hope while acknowledging the reality of human moral frailty? How do we move forward with practical wisdom that allows us to build better individuals, institutions, and societies? The first key is understanding that hope isn't naive optimism, it's a practical necessity. Hope, grounded in reality and informed by understanding, gives us the energy and motivation to work toward positive change. It's what allows us to believe in the possibility of transformation even while acknowledging the challenges and setbacks we'll face along the way. Practical wisdom begins with prevention. Now that we understand the mechanisms that lead good people to do harmful things, we can work to create systems and structures that support ethical behavior. This might include building organizational cultures that reward integrity over expediency, creating accountability systems that catch problems early, developing educational programs that strengthen moral reasoning, fostering diverse, inclusive environments that resist dehumanization, establishing clear ethical guidelines and processes for addressing violations. Individual action matters tremendously. Each person can contribute to positive transformation through regular ethical self-assessment, active cultivation of moral courage, building and maintaining ethical support networks, practicing empathy and perspective, speaking up against wrongdoing, contributing to positive cultural change. The role of storytelling cannot be underestimated. Sharing stories of both moral failure and ethical triumph helps us learn from history and inspires us to do better. These narratives remind us that change is possible and that individual choices matter. Education plays a crucial role in developing ethical resilience. This isn't just about learning rules and principles. It's about developing the capacity for moral reasoning, emotional intelligence, and ethical decision-making. We need education that teaches critical thinking and moral reasoning, develops emotional intelligence, and empathy, explores historical examples of both moral failure and courage provides practical tools for ethical decision. Making encourages questioning and moral dialogue. Community support is essential for maintaining ethical behavior. We need to create and nurture communities that value and reward moral courage, provide support during ethical challenges, share wisdom and experience, hold members accountable while offering forgiveness, work together toward positive change. The path forward requires both individual and collective action. We must work on ourselves while also working to create environments that support ethical behavior. This means supporting and encouraging others in their ethical development, contributing to positive cultural change, building and maintaining ethical institutions, addressing systemic issues that enable harm, creating opportunities for redemption and growth. Remember that perfect ethical behavior isn't the goal. Continuous improvement is. We will all make mistakes, face challenges, and sometimes fall short of our ideals. What matters is our commitment to learning, growing, and trying to do better. As we conclude this exploration of why good people do bad things, let's remember that understanding these mechanisms isn't just an academic exercise. It's a practical necessity for creating a better world. Each of us has the potential to be both better and worse than we imagine. Our task is to nurture the good while acknowledging and managing our capacity for harm. The final message is one of both responsibility and hope. We are all vulnerable to forces that can lead us astray, but we also all have the capacity to resist these forces and contribute to positive change. The choice ultimately is ours, and it's a choice we make not once but every day, in countless small moments that shape who we are and the world we create. Let us move forward with this wisdom, working together to build a world where it's easier to be good, where ethical behavior is supported and celebrated, and where transformation toward the light is always possible. The journey isn't easy, but it's one of the most important we can undertake, for ourselves, for others, and for the future we hope to create.